Sign these documents immediately, Mr. Davis.
Mr. Davis, we don't have all day.
Right, because paperwork always solves everything.
Raise it or remove it, Mr. Hale. Those are your only options. Karen Summers' voice cracked the morning calm like a whip. Her designer sunglasses reflected the river behind me, a mirror of polished arrogance. I stood ankle-deep in mud, wrench in hand, the half-fixed irrigation pipe still hissing beside my boots. "That bridge is on my land," I said. "You don't own the river." Karen smiled that HOA smile, tight, brittle, practiced. "We represent River Glen. We own the community view, and your bridge ruins it." Behind her, 2 board members shifted awkwardly, holding clipboards like shields. I wiped the sweat off my brow, meeting her stare. "Lady, my wife's 9 months pregnant. I'm not raising a bridge so you can float paddleboards." She tilted her head, voice dipping into threat. "Investors expect progress. The HOA won't tolerate delays." I laughed once, short, sharp. Then the HOA can go build their progress somewhere else. Her heels clicked hard on the wood planks as she spun around, muttering something about non-compliance. The sound followed her all the way across the bridge like a countdown I couldn't stop hearing. They say peace is priceless. If that's true, my slice of land past the Thompson River was worth more than any mansion she could ever dream of regulating. Hale Acres, 3rd-generation farm, carved from sweat and stubbornness. I'd grown up watching my grandfather sand the same railings on that wooden bridge, listening to him say, "This bridge keeps us free, boy. Never let anyone tell you otherwise." The county records still bore his initials on the survey maps, proof that ownership wasn't just paper, it was blood and callous. Across that river sat River Glen, rows of manicured houses with matching mailboxes and perfect smiles hiding HOA rulebooks. Their lawns looked cloned, their flags color-coordinated, their meetings legendary for arguing over mailbox shades. And at the head of it all was Karen Summers, the self-appointed queen of conformity, armed with bylaws thicker than the Bible. She'd tried everything to rope me in. Welcome baskets, mandatory notices, even fake compliance letters. Every time I gave the same answer, no. It wasn't just defiance, it was survival. My land wasn't under their jurisdiction, confirmed by deeds and county stamps. But power hates boundaries, and Karen hated no. She circled like a crow, looking for roadkill, waiting for a weak spot. The morning she marched to my bridge with that fake smile army, I knew she'd finally found her excuse. She called it environmental compliance. I called it what it was, control. My wife, Mallory, was 38 weeks pregnant, radiant and exhausted. Our house smelled like hay, apples, and baby lotion from all the gifts she'd been organizing. I handled the farm alone, feed rotations, irrigation repairs, everything, checking on her every hour. Farm life doesn't stop for fatherhood. It just adds another heartbeat to protect. That bridge wasn't just wood. It was the 10-minute lifeline between her and the hospital. The day after Karen's little ambush, a white SUV crept down the dirt path again. I could tell it was her by the way she hugged the center line like she owned the whole county. Beige pantsuit, folder in hand, expression carved from entitlement. She stepped out, sniffed the air like the smell of mud offended her. "Morning, Karen," I said, forcing civility. "Back already? Bridge too sturdy for your taste? I'm here on official HOA business," she announced, thrusting a folder at me. The document looked more expensive than my truck's last repair. "You've been served an environmental compliance directive. The bridge is deemed an obstruction to river navigation. You have 72 hours to remove or elevate it." I laughed in disbelief. "This bridge has stood here 50 years. It's county registered, older than your HOA." Her lips thinned. "We're not here to debate history. The river belongs to the community." "The land belongs to me," I snapped, tapping the page. "That's what deeds are for." She faltered for half a heartbeat before regaining composure. "You're standing in the way of progress." "Then enlighten me," I said. She glanced toward her car, lowered her voice. "It's confidential. Investors don't like delays. That word, investors, stuck like a splinter. I could see the nervous twitch in her jaw. "You've got investors for kayak docks?" I asked. She ignored the jab, retreating to her SUV. "You'll regret making this difficult, Mr. Hale." The tires spun gravel across my boots as she sped off. By lunchtime, the town gossip pages were already buzzing. River Glen HOA announces Riverfront Revitalization Project, private piers, cafe, and eco-tourism hub. My phone lit up with neighbors forwarding the article, asking if I was finally selling. I wasn't, and I knew exactly who had planted the story. That night, as I fixed the generator, I heard voices across the water. I killed the lights, crouched near the fence. Karen's tone was sharp, impatient. "You promised returns this quarter," a man said, his voice city, slick, thin. "Investors don't wait forever. I will deliver," she hissed back. "But he's stonewalling us." "Then move him out of the way." Their voices faded, but the chill stayed. So that was it. This wasn't about community spirit. It was about profit. My bridge wasn't blocking their view. It was blocking their payday. When I walked back into the house, Mallory was resting on the couch, one hand on her belly. "Everything okay?" she asked, smiling softly. "Yeah," I lied, brushing her hair back. "Just Karen being Karen." She chuckled weakly, and I didn't have the heart to tell her that the woman from across the river might soon be standing between us and the hospital. For the next few days, I tried to pretend things were normal. Morning chores, coffee in my chipped mug, the rooster screaming at dawn like rent was due, but that unease stayed coiled in my gut. Karen Summers wasn't the type to take no as an ending, it was an invitation. Saturday came quiet and gold, sunlight spilling over the fields. Mallory complained about back pain the night before, nothing new this close to her due date. We chalked it up to strain, made tea, tried to rest. I didn't sleep much, too many what-ifs circling in my head. Around 8 a.m., I brought her breakfast in bed. She was pale, trembling. "I think I need help," she whispered. "What's wrong?" Her breathing was shallow. "It's not the baby." My heart's racing. I dialed 911 so fast my hand shook. "Hale Acres Farm," I barked. "Pregnant woman, full term, heart palpitations, possible distress." "Ambulance dispatched," the operator said. "ETA, 50 minutes, 50 minutes." Normally manageable, I'd drive her myself, but when I turned the ignition, the pickup coughed once and died, starter failure. Of course. Fate has a cruel sense of humor. No backup vehicles, no workers. It was the weekend. Just me, a failing truck, and a terrified wife. I sprinted back inside. She was sweating, whispering the baby's name through clenched teeth. Then my phone buzzed again. Static crackled. "This is EMT Unit 3. We're at the bridge entrance. Can't proceed. There's debris blocking the way." "What kind of debris?" "Looks like dumped trash. As high as the hood." The world tunneled. "Are you saying you can't cross the bridge?" "Not safely. We can reroute, but that's another hour and a half." I didn't even hang up. I grabbed Mallory, lifted her in my arms, and ran. The half-mile stretch to the bridge felt like miles of nightmare. My boots slipped through mud, lungs screaming for air, but I didn't stop. Somewhere ahead, I saw flashing lights and 2 paramedics running toward me, med bags swinging. That's when I saw it. The wall. A mountain of garbage choking my bridge. Black bags, splintered wood, a broken kayak with a River Glen HOA sticker still clinging to its side. The paramedics cut through a narrow gap, dragged the stretcher over, shouting orders. I stumbled after them, numb. They got her onto the rig and tore down the dirt road, sirens fading into the distance. I stood there, chest heaving, staring at the wreckage. The bridge, our lifeline, looked like a landfill nightmare. The smell of rot mixed with exhaust and fear. For a moment, all I could do was whisper, "What have you done, Karen?" Hours later, at the hospital, I sat beside Mallory's bed, holding her hand as monitors beeped steadily again. Our son, Eli Hale, arrived before sunset. 7 pounds, 9 ounces. Proof that miracles can climb over mountains of garbage. I cried, ugly, shaking sobs I didn't care to hide. But even as I held him, the image burned into my mind, that pile of waste standing between life and help. And in that moment, something inside me hardened. Whatever war Karen Summers thought she'd started over a bridge, she'd just turned personal. When we brought Eli home 2 days later, I told myself to let it go. The bridge could wait. My wife and my son were safe, and that was all that mattered. But every time I closed my eyes, I saw that mountain of trash. The way it blocked the light, the way it mocked me. Garbage didn't just appear overnight. Someone did that on purpose. And when that someone wore beige suits and drove white Lexuses, my gut already knew the answer. On the third morning, I took the long detour back to the farm from the pharmacy. The main road curved around the river, giving me a clear view of the damage. The sight made my stomach turn. The garbage pile hadn't been touched. It had grown. Plastic sheets fluttered in the wind like surrender flags, and the smell was thick enough to taste. A swarm of flies hovered above it like a dark cloud. This wasn't random dumping, it was targeted sabotage. Someone had taken half a neighborhood's worth of junk and built a barricade straight through my life. I parked the truck near the fence and walked closer, boots sinking into soft mud. I circled the heap slowly, trying to make sense of it. Broken furniture, splintered fencing, torn insulation, old fence posts, all dumped neatly across the wooden planks like it had been engineered. Then I noticed the stickers. Bright orange labels reading River Glen Waste Day. HOA issue stickers, the kind they used on collection bins across the subdivision. I crouched, took photos, heart pounding. This wasn't just vandalism, it was evidence. I went back to the truck, grabbed gloves, and started digging. Literally, every shovelful revealed more. Cracked flower pots, rusted grills, broken planters, a half-rotten kayak with the HOA logo still clinging to its side. There were even documents mixed in with the waste, receipts, packaging slips, junk mail addressed to River Glen residents. No coincidence, someone had taken community trash and turned it into a weapon. And the timing, less than 12 hours after Karen's last visit, was too perfect to ignore. When the sheriff's deputy arrived, I was still standing there with my arms crossed, phone in one hand, photos ready. Deputy Ray was an older man, late 50s, gray mustache, the kind of lawman who'd seen everything twice and didn't have patience left for HOA theatrics. He squinted at the pile, let out a low whistle. "Damn HOA again," he muttered. "You'd be surprised how often I hear that sentence." I handed him my phone. "You're not dealing with littering, Ray. You're dealing with attempted obstruction of emergency services. My wife nearly died because of this." Ray flipped through the photos, his jaw tightening. "All right, you got cameras, driveway, barn entrance, and yeah, the bridge. Good. Let's take a look." Back at the farmhouse, I loaded the footage. We sat shoulder to shoulder in front of the dusty monitor, the room quiet except for the hum of the fan. At 2:14 a.m., headlights flickered across the lens. A large truck eased onto the bridge, lights off, moving slow. The side panel caught just enough reflection for us to read the faded logo. Glen Waste Services. Ray cursed under his breath. That's a real company. County contract, even. "Which means someone hired them," I said, "and I bet it wasn't Santa Claus." Ray scribbled notes, his tone shifting from curious to serious. "You got motive?" I nodded. "HOA ordered me to remove the bridge 3 days ago." I refused. "Now this happens." He nodded once. "All right, I'll escalate it. We'll pull the contractor's invoice." But I didn't wait for bureaucracy. Bureaucracy was Karen's weapon, not mine. That night, I called Mitch, my old high school friend now working in county records. Mitch was one of those guys who'd grown older without growing up, still cracking jokes, still loyal. "You calling for trouble? Or for beer?" he said when he picked up. "Both," I told him. "I need to know if River Glen HOA filed anything new. Permits, business registrations, property expansions. Give me 5 minutes, he said. It took him 3. There's a new LLC on record, he said, his voice turning serious. Summer Properties LLC. Filed 2 months ago. Purpose: Riverfront Eco Development Project. My stomach dropped. Who's listed? Karen Summers, primary manager. Co-founder, Craig Mills. The name punched through my memory. Craig, HOA treasurer. Always the quiet shadow behind Karen. Always taking notes. Never blinking. So it's not just HOA politics, I said. It's business. Looks that way. Big money, too. Private investment fund involved. You sure you want to poke that hornet's nest? I looked out at the bridge lights flickering across the water. Mitch, they already stung my family. I'm just bringing the smoke. By morning, I had a folder thick with proof. Photos of the dump site, screenshots of the bridge footage, HOA letters, and the LLC filings. I drove back into town, straight to Ray's office, and dropped the stack on his desk. He read in silence, the lines on his forehead deepening. When he finally looked up, his eyes had that weary focus of a man realizing this wasn't a civil spat, it was criminal. This isn't just dumping, John. We're talking obstruction of emergency services, criminal mischief, environmental damage, and possibly conspiracy. Then arrest her, I said. He sighed. You know, it's never that simple. But we'll start with the waste contractor. Follow the paper trail. By nightfall, he had Glen Waste turned over their billing logs under subpoena. And there it was, payment processed through River Glen HOA's discretionary fund, authorized by none other than Karen Summers. The digital receipt timestamp matched the night of the dumping to the minute. Ray called me personally. You were right, he said. Your bridge just turned into Exhibit A. I didn't celebrate. I just stared at my sleeping son, thinking about how close we'd come to losing him because someone wanted a prettier view. I didn't want revenge. I wanted accountability. And that, I knew, was the one thing people like Karen feared most. The morning news broke before I even had time to breathe. River Glen HOA president under investigation for illegal dumping. Cameras camped outside the police station. Social media lit up like a bonfire. Neighbors posting photos of the trash mountain. Others claiming innocence. Some pretending they always knew she was shady. The town loved a scandal. But for me, this wasn't gossip. It was grief, anger, and justice, all tangled together. When my phone buzzed with a text from Ray that simply read, "It's happening," I knew exactly what that meant. I drove into town, my pulse steady but hard. 2 police cruisers sat in front of River Glen's pristine community center, blue lights reflecting off spotless windows. Reporters crowded the curb. And there she was, Karen Summers, standing in cuffs, face pale under too much foundation, pastel sweater traded for a gray hoodie, the HOA queen dethroned. Her hair, usually perfect, was pulled back in a messy knot, and for once she looked human, small. I parked down the block, stepped out, and just watched. Ray approached, eyes grim but satisfied. She's being charged with illegal dumping, obstruction of emergency services, reckless endangerment, and property destruction, he said. EPA's adding environmental violations. That bridge is technically part of a protected waterway. What about Mills? I asked. Working on it. He's slippery, but he's next. Karen didn't look at me as they led her to the cruiser. Maybe she couldn't. Or maybe she was too busy calculating her next excuse. Either way, it didn't matter. The world she'd built on rules and fear was cracking in front of the cameras. I didn't smile. There was no satisfaction in watching justice limp after the fact, but there was closure. That night, as I held Eli in the rocking chair, I replayed everything. The first argument at the bridge, the threats, the laughter, the garbage. It all led here. And I realized something. People like Karen think power means control. But real power is holding your ground when the world demands you bow. A week later, Craig Mills made his move. Or tried to. The man who'd hidden behind spreadsheets and HOA minutes was suddenly on every news channel, giving statements to reporters. I had no knowledge of the dumping, he said. These were unilateral actions by Mrs. Summers. He called her unhinged, rogue, and not representative of our values. But paper doesn't lie. The records Mitch found, the shared signatures, the joint fund labeled Dockside Development Consulting, told a different story. When Ray and a county accountant dug deeper, they uncovered thousands in diverted HOA funds flowing into a private joint account tied to the same LLC. Fraud. Plain and simple. The following Friday morning, Ray texted again. Got him. Craig Mills was arrested in his driveway, mid-pack, shoving boxes into a rental SUV. Cameras caught everything. The cuffs, the red face. The irony of him still wearing an HOA polo as deputies read him his rights. The town lost its collective mind. Social feeds flooded with memes of bridges, trash piles, and captions like, "Don't cross John Hale." I didn't post a thing. I just stood on the porch of my rebuilt bridge, the one they'd tried to destroy, and whispered a promise to the river, to my son, and to myself. This land stays free. By the time the dust settled, River Glen's board was in chaos. Emergency meetings, resignations, panic. Homeowners who'd once worshipped their HOA leaders were now furious, demanding audits, accountability, and refunds. Someone spray-painted the entrance sign overnight. HOA equals hell on acres. I didn't do it, but I'll admit, I laughed. Karen was sitting in county jail. Craig was facing felony charges, and the same bridge they tried to erase stood stronger than ever. But this wasn't over, because when power falls, it always tries to rebuild. I could already feel the shift. Quiet phone calls, backroom deals, whispered apologies. They'd try to frame it as a misunderstanding, call me difficult, say I overreacted. Maybe they'd even rebuild their committee someday, but I'd be waiting. Not with vengeance, just vigilance. Because sometimes, the only thing standing between tyranny and freedom is a single man who refuses to move his bridge. The courthouse didn't look like justice. It looked like a tired old building pretending to care. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead, walls smelled faintly of bleach and disappointment, and the judge's chair had seen more excuses than truth. But that morning, I didn't care about aesthetics. I cared about accountability. The woman who'd nearly cost my wife and child their lives was finally sitting 2 rows ahead of me, hands folded, eyes darting like a trapped animal. Karen Summers, once the HOA queen of River Glen, now just another defendant waiting for judgment. Beside her sat Craig Mills, the treasurer turned traitor, sweating through his khakis like the courtroom was a sauna. Their lawyers whispered to them like handlers calming down zoo exhibits. My attorney, Beth Holloway, leaned toward me and said quietly, "You ready?" Her tone was calm but sharp. She wasn't just a lawyer, she was a predator in boots. I nodded once. "Let's finish this." Behind me, the small-town press whispered, the rustle of notepads and camera clicks filling the air like distant thunder. The judge entered, weary but alert. When he adjusted his glasses and looked down at us, the room settled into a silence thick enough to choke on. "This court is now in session," he said. I didn't know whether to breathe or hold it. The prosecution began by laying out the timeline, the dumping, the ambulance delay, the county footage, the financial trail. Then they played the dashcam video from the EMT vehicle. The sound filled the room. Gravel crunching, the sudden halt, and the EMT's voice, "We can't get through. The bridge is blocked." Then came the 911 call. My own voice echoed back at me from the speakers, strained, scared, desperate. "My wife's in distress. We need help, Hale Acres. It's urgent." Karen flinched at the sound. For the first time since this began, she looked small. The prosecutor let the silence stretch before turning to her. "Mrs. Summers, do you still claim you had no knowledge of this incident?" Her lawyer objected, of course, but the damage was already done. You could feel the jury's disgust settling in like winter frost. Next came the paper trail. Ray's team had found it all. The HOA's discretionary fund, the invoices from Glen Waste Services, the payment processed with Karen's personal authorization. Then the smoking gun. A string of emails from her HOA account discussing the removal of obstacles and restoring visibility to the riverfront. In one, she even joked, "Once that bridge is gone, we can finally see progress." I didn't look away. I wanted her to feel the weight of every word she'd typed. Craig's lawyer tried to spin it differently. He said his client was a passive financial supporter, someone unaware of operational misconduct. But then Beth stood, calm and deliberate. "Passive?" she said, voice echoing just enough to command attention. Then why did Mr. Mills Co. sign this internal memo approving a waste relocation initiative under the pretense of land management? She projected the document onto the screen. Craig's signature glared back like a confession. The jury didn't move. Neither did he. His mouth opened, then closed again, a man trying to swallow the truth and choking on it instead. Karen's defense leaned hard on sympathy. Her lawyer painted her as a well-meaning woman who'd simply gone too far in her passion to improve the community. Beth didn't even stand for that part. She just sat with her arms crossed, lips curled in a smirk that said, "Try harder." When Karen finally took the stand, the courtroom buzzed. She started smooth, rehearsed, talking about community pride, beautification, environmental awareness. But when the prosecutor brought up the ambulance delay, her tone cracked. "I wasn't aware," she began. Beth rose. "Mrs. Summers," she said. Voice quiet but lethal. "Did you or did you not receive direct notice from Mr. Hale that his wife was due to give birth any day?" Karen froze. "You did, didn't you?" Her lips parted. "Yes, but—" "No further questions," Beth said, turning away. That single exchange killed whatever sympathy she had left. The jury didn't need any more convincing. They'd seen her arrogance, her greed, her casual disregard for life. It took 2 days for the judge to deliver the verdict, but when he did, his words cut through the courtroom like a sermon. "This case," he said, "is not about bureaucracy or bylaws. It is about ego, about what happens when entitlement outweighs empathy. Mr. Hale's family suffered because you weaponized authority for personal gain. You gambled with lives for aesthetics." Karen Summers was sentenced to 9 months in county jail, plus community service and a $37,000 fine. Craig Mills got probation, restitution payments, and a 5-year ban from handling finances for any registered organization. The HOA itself was ordered to undergo a full forensic audit under county supervision. The sound of the gavel hit like thunder, and just like that, the bridge war was over. I didn't cheer. Justice isn't loud. It's quiet, steady, and heavy. When the deputies let her out, Karen wouldn't look at me. Craig tried, but the shame in his eyes couldn't find a place to land. Beth whispered, "That's the sound of balance returning." Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed like flies. Cameras flashed, questions flew. "Mr. Hale, how does it feel to win?" I didn't answer. I just said, "It's not about winning. It's about not backing down." Then I walked straight past them into the autumn light. At home, the fields shimmered gold under the setting sun. Mallory stood on the porch holding Eli, his small fingers wrapped around hers. I walked up, kissed her forehead, and finally exhaled. "It's done," I said. She smiled softly. "Then let's build something stronger." 3 weeks later, the bridge was reborn. Reinforced steel beams, new timber planks, motion sensor lights that glowed warm against the dusk. I added a gate with a keypad and had the words Karen Blocker 3000 welded right into the crossbeam. The delivery guy almost dropped it laughing. "Hell of a name," he said. "Hell of a reason," I replied. Every hammer strike felt like closure. Every new plank was a promise. No one would ever use my bridge as a weapon again. As fall rolled in, peace finally settled back into Hale Acres. The harvest was good, the roof didn't leak for once, and the nights were filled with the sound of Eli's laughter, or crying, depending on his mood. I didn't mind either. Life had a rhythm again. Karen was in county jail, doing litter cleanup, ironically enough. Craig had vanished into bureaucratic exile. River Glen, stripped of its toxic leadership, was trying to rebuild what it had lost. its conscience. The county's audit uncovered even more rot: fake consulting fees, illegal dues, and relatives on inflated contracts. The entire board was dissolved. One afternoon, a woman from the new management firm stopped by. Her name was Gina, polite, nervous, carrying a box of apology letters and a fruit basket. "This doesn't make things right," she said softly, "but the new board voted to return full oversight of the bridge and surrounding easement to your control. No more claims, no more proposals." I accepted the basket with a nod. "Tell them I appreciate it. And if anyone tries to dump another kayak here, it's getting turned into firewood." She smiled awkwardly. Fair enough. Weeks passed. The air turned crisp. The leaves turned amber. Mallory healed, stronger every day. We took turns with Eli, trading sleepless nights for small miracles. His first smile, his first laugh. The house smelled like baby powder and fried eggs, and I couldn't remember the last time I'd felt so still. But stillness, this time, didn't feel like waiting for trouble. It felt earned. Word spread through town that the bridge had become something of a symbol. People called it the line. Not just a physical divide between my land and River Glen, but a moral one. The point where someone finally said, "Enough." I didn't ask for it, didn't want to be anyone's folk hero. But that's how stories work. You stand your ground once, and people remember it forever. When strangers stopped by to take pictures of the sign, I'd smile and wave. Not because I was proud, but because they needed to see that you could fight back and still keep your humanity. 2 months after the verdict, we hosted a small harvest celebration. Nothing fancy, just neighbors, music, cider, laughter. Mallory invited a few folks from River Glen. The ones who'd apologized, the ones who'd tried to make things right. To my surprise, they came. Teachers, retirees, young families, real people, the good ones. We built a makeshift stage out of hay bales. Someone played guitar. Someone else projected a local documentary onto the barn wall, an expose on abusive HOAs called Welcome to the Neighborhood. Subtle, maybe too on the nose, but everyone laughed. And then, sometime around midnight, a group of guests rolled out something enormous. An 8-foot papier-mâché sculpture shaped like a trash bag with a blonde wig taped to it. The sign across the front read, "Karen, Queen of Compost." The crowd roared. I nearly choked on my cider. Even the sheriff, who'd shown up for pie, grinned and muttered, "Well, I guess that's one way to recycle tyranny. It wasn't vengeance, it was humor, our final act of letting go." When the crowd faded and the last embers of the bonfire died down, I stood by the bridge, holding Eli against my chest. The river whispered beneath the planks, the moonlight glinting off the steel rails. I thought about everything: the fear, the anger, the absurdity of fighting a suburban tyrant over a bridge. And yet, here we were, alive, whole, free. I whispered to my son, his tiny breath warm against my neck. Sometimes the strongest walls aren't made of concrete, buddy. They're made from standing your ground, quietly, fiercely, without blinking. Because in the end, that's all a man can do. Stand firm when the world insists you fold. And if you're lucky, just lucky enough, you build a bridge that outlasts every storm.